Hello, Charlie TCG here, and welcome back to Looking Ahead, a series where I break down and analyse the meta, what's happening over Japan, and how that impact our one. We have a really exciting episode to cover this week, since Japan tournament structure for next season has been revealed, so I'm going to break down exactly those key dates which you should be aware of. We're also going to look at how the Obsidian Flames meta is starting to evolve in Japan. Is Charizard BDIF, or are people focusing more on the World Championships and archetypes as well? As well as looking at a tier list as well from what a couple Japanese creators have popped up there, really kind of see exactly what they think of the tier 1 archetypes and how their sort of meta will really impact the World Championships. Really kind of combination of all these looking ahead videos, which I've done for nearly 30 episodes, which is honestly insane. And I just want to say thank you so much for the support on the last looking ahead video. It's honestly absolutely blown me away, and generally thank you so much for all my new subscribers joining the channel, and I really hope you enjoy your stay on my coverage of looking ahead at the Japanese meta. So let's look at the Japanese tournament structure here. So we've got the dates for when the City Leagues are going to be taking place from Season 1 to Season 4, as you can see on screen here. The City Leagues are similar to like League Cups, quite a large tournaments. You can get always to help you get into your invite for World Championship. So generally think it's going to be really exciting to see. Again, we don't know how much these numbers will really affect going into where the next World Championship is, because right now we do not know where it's going to be. And Japan went absolutely insane how numbers and really competitive to get into these spots because Worlds within Japan. So we'll see if that numbers will different or change. So it's going to be exciting to really cover exactly when these are going to be out. As you know, I cover normally about what the top archetypes were, so like how many Gardevoirs won this year or how many Lugias won. So I kind of like did those sort of the top 6 decks and where they changed one week to week. So I really am excited to restart back into covering the City Leagues. And obviously the big tournaments as well, the Champions League and obviously the Japan Nationals has in fact been revealed, which is exciting. We've got those dates for the next 4, and Yokohama is literally happening again also in Yokohama in the next tournament just a couple of weeks later. The reason why I think this is really exciting when this is being revealed, because they're going to have the same format Japan has for right now, minus the 151 set. So we can see exactly where the format is starting to evolve. Is Charizard this BDIF contender, or is the likes of Lost in Box, Xianpao, Giratina, and Arceus sort of builds really will keep that deck in check? We also have Kyoto, which could be in December 23rd to 24th for Humnia. Again, really apologies for the pronunciation. Being dyslexic can definitely struggle at times, which is in February 17th to 18th of next year. And Aichi, which is in April 12th to 14th. And the Japan National Championships is June 1st to 2nd. These are these incredibly hugely popular sort of events here, where like 10 to 12,000 people try and apply to get the 3,000 tournament slot, which is honestly, you can go, you think about our like luck to try and get Arcanine Labs, just imagine the lottery to try and enter a world champion, try and get any points for world championships. These are exciting. These are the huge tournaments, which I definitely will be covering exactly what's going to be happening, what the best decks are, and I'm really excited to start covering about Japan's championships, because it's really started to ramp up over there, and generally really excited to see exactly how the meta is starting to really impact our one. So if we look at how Obsidian Flames start to affect the meta here, we can see here that Charizard EX is definitely the most played archetype. Now, these results have kind of been compiled from about 2,000 to 3,000 different deck archetypes that have been coined in place around over in Japan last week. So it's generally good to see that Charizard is being that #1 spot. And that kind of like gives an indication that people aren't testing the Worlds format probably as much at these sort of tournaments here. They always want to try out the new archetypes. That is Charizard EX. It has an incredible ability, an amazing attack, and really good to kind of set up as mail for attackers. And we've got to see exactly how that build is starting to shape up. Xianpao and Lost in Tina are the 2nd and 3rd place. We touched about it last week as well, where Xianpao and Giratina are up there for being incredibly popular. They do really well in the best of 1 format. Obviously, both of them can absolutely brick really hard and lose really poorly, and that's why sometimes in best of 3, they may not be as strong, but in a best of 1 situation, if Xianpao and Giratina pop off with the amazing, huge damage output both Xianpao and Giratina could do, they're in a really good spot. Gardevoir is at a 4th place, being 9.2%. Lost Zone Box, definitely more focusing on the Dragonite, is definitely where it's focusing. It's at 6.5. Miraidon EX is very popular last week, by being 4.8. Arctina is 4.6. And all the way down 8th space is Lugia at 3.5%. Such a fall from grace from being basically the 20 to 50% archetype that it truly once was when it was first revealed. It's quite interesting to see this sort of meta here. Will this really impact how it's going to be at Worlds? Is Xianpao and Giratina going to be one of these really played archetypes because of how good they're doing these Japanese tournaments? Well, if we look at another tournament result here, we can see that Xianpao and Giratina are in there. They're one of the top 4 placing decks. Even with Charizard and Gardevoir, you're looking at, they're basically about 60% of the meta. This is kind of like good to see the translation. It's not just on these big sort of online results, big like combination of them. You can see it actually in a big over 100 people tournament as well. Even Mew's in there with 6.1%, but you still see here Lugia is a much smaller percentage than we're used to before, and then 14.8% of other sort of decks here. I think it's quite nice to see we're going to see this in here. Maybe we'll go see loads of Japanese sort of players kind of like pick up Shi and Pao, because Gardevoir and Lost and Giratina might struggle in that best of 3 sort of situation by being more of those really good in that best of 1 situation and not as strong in the best of 3. So I do like to see this in innovation, and maybe the aggressive turbo combo piece Shi and Pao might be the way to play it. So let's look at these top 4 archetypes and exactly what these decks are really shaping up to in this meta here. We're seeing here is Charizard here, and we're kind of seeing a more partner trend with it. It's going with Arceus and Pidgeot. It's definitely the way of how the setup for the Charizard is going. I know you might go over it, but Charlie, you have Pidgeot and Arceus. Yes, they kind of like, they do exactly the same thing. Yes, but if you have them in the same deck, the Arceus can really help you get your setup piece. The Pidgeot can get that fine other piece you might want to have. I think Delphox is a really good like bulk V card, which has seen so much more success because it can do this 120 and also 120 snipe, because some people may not respect it, may not know what it does, and not bench their mana fee, and then they can easily claim easy 2 prizes as well. That 120 is just really, really powerful because it can get the KO on the very sort of interesting sort of cards here. Like, for example, it can get a KO on a Cresselia from a bench, but unfortunately not a Radiant Greninja. Stuff like that is something we should always keep an eye out with it. Here they are playing the better Charmander, which we don't get until the 151 set. But this is a very more generic version of Charizard. We're seeing the Vitality Band is really good to do that extra 10 damage. So it can easily get to that 210, 230 damage, which I think is pretty powerful for what Charizard has to offer. And Radiant Charizard as your attacking option just really does make sense here. More disruptive elements here with the Judge and Ionas. And I like this Scare Up as well. And Magma Basement, 100%. I love this one as well, because you can attack for your Charizard Delphox as quickly as possible. Sometimes even your Charmander. You don't even need to evolve into Charizard to get the setup. You can go Charmander, attach energy, Magma Basement to it, and then evolve in Charizard. I generally think it's super, super powerful, really consistent, and generally could be up there as a tier 2, tier 1 archetype right now over in Japan. Shi and Pao, this is the list which I've been really enjoying. I am going to be doing my own version of Charizard and Shi and Pao released this week, so please make sure to keep an eye out for that one. Palkia, I like it because with the introduction of Pidgeot, you can say goodbye to Arceus, because Palkia is really powerful, that energy acceleration this deck has to offer, and that Pidgeot can get that combo piece you might want to have here. This list plays a higher count of Boss's Orders with 1 count of cancelling clone. I think that might be a bit intuitive. Sorry, I would like to have potentially maybe 1 more cancelling clone here, so it's easy to draw into it, and not having an easy recovery card to get your Radiant Greninja if it dies might make your combo piece. You have to be really careful when you place it. So that's the only thing I would find a bit struggling with this style deck here. But Lost City is really powerful in this one. Like I said, if you get the combo piece and can KO 2 Rolts, or even if you go against Lost Box and KO like 2 Sableyes or things like that, they can really struggle in the deck to really keep up, and getting rid of their big threats is honestly incredible. And that's why Shi and Pao can absolutely shine by being a really good combo piece deck, and Pidgeot really does help in the style of matchup. Lost Zone Tina is pretty much, you can play this deck at the World Championships. It's incredibly well, incredibly consistent, and just doing really powerful. I love the energy and recycler in this deck here. So you don't need to rely too much on your Super Rod. You can just have energy recycle late game to get the energies you might require to get them drawing Chorus, or potentially the Mirage Gate. So I really like the style deck here. Still having the path to the peak because you want to be disruptive as much as possible, as well as you also love to have the energies here. I like the 4-4-3-3 energy split. We've kind of seen that. You shouldn't go play 2 water energies, because if you prize one or lost in one, your Greninja is basically just offline. So I generally do not like that at all. I like the switching cards. I like the disruptive routes. This is a really consistent Lost in Giratina, and because you have them, the Jet Energy, you can Abyss Seeker as early as if you go second, which is pretty much where Lost Zone Tina is really kind of ramping up to be going. And if we look at Gardevoir here, this is a list here which I think is really powerful and really consistent. They do play the Memory Skip Rolts, not the Scarlet and Violet one, which we saw a lot of success over in NAIC, but it also plays that new Moonlight Stadium, where you get to discard a Psychic and heal 30 damage from all of your Psychic Pokemon. I really like this definitely in Gardevoir. It isn't as common, but it's also a promo card, so it's much more harder to get. If you think about like Cramomatic over in Japan, like for us, it was a bulk common, which you can easily get, but over in Japan, it's like a league promo, and they're like potentially going for £100 each, $100 each. So that kind of puts in perspective, like is this going to be the Champions Festival sort of situation here? Are we going to see it's always the Gardevoirs? Right now, it's in like 1 in every 8 Gardevoir lists, maybe every 6 Gardevoir lists here, but it's a lot more common than when Champions Festival is in here. This is really consistent because it's the best of one format. That's why they're playing Mirage Step Curlier, which can make your setup a lot easier. You don't mind going behind a little bit prize or so. I generally think this deck is really consistent. The heavy ball, the high kind of energy is really good to get any of the cards you might want to have. Worker, 3 stadiums plus power pad is instantly 4 out of path to peak. So instantly so much better and so much greater to play. So let's look at some of the tools, some of the list for the tier list as well. Kind of see exactly where people in Japan think the meta is kind of shaping up to it. And they can easily see on this one here, we see Giratina up there in that tier 1 archetype, Gardevoir as well, and Lost Zone box as well. Honestly, I think this is a pretty good one here. Arctina is the only one I might not say is a real good tier 1 archetype. I maybe put like Arc Umbreon is in that sort of tier list as well, but they don't really have that in here. Their tier 2 is definitely their Fusion Mew, the Xianpao, Lost Zone Gudra, Arceus Duraludon, Arceus Flying Pikachu, and Single Strike Lugia. Those ones I kind of would agree with, really, because Mew is definitely fallen from grace a tiny bit. It was that really powerful archetype. It obviously has won Japan Championships. It won the Asian Open, so it's done really well in these Asian tournaments. But honestly, I think Mew is not as strong as a pick because people will be taking Umbreon. People will be taking so many really powerful dark type options and trying to go against Mew with the Spiritombs, really slow Mew down. Xianpao, like I mentioned, I think is really good right now in the new format. But it's also, I would probably place it quite high up as the list as well. As you know, it is my pick for Worlds if I was going because I generally love that archetype. I do think the Flying Pikachu Arceus build is really powerful. If you team it up with Umbreon, I generally think you, as I mentioned in my tier list, my breakdown video, I think that is one of the strongest archetypes right now. You have options to the basic Pokemon, like the Lost Box archetypes. You have answer with Umbreon to Mews to Gardevoirs. I generally think that's potentially one of the more stronger archetypes. And to finish up in their tier 3 archetypes, they have Darkrai, Rapid Strike Box, Dialga, sorry, Lost Zone and Radiant Charizard, Arc Box with Duraludon, United Wings, Single Strike Lugia, Miraidon, Arc Aerodactyl, and Ting Lu. I think it's quite interesting to see what they put in the tier 3 archetype. There's some here which I definitely kind of like written off, like the Regidrago box and the Radiant Charizard Lost Zone. That's really kind of fallen from grace. Like, you think about, like, the Radiant Charizard was the strongest archetype of Lost Zone when it was released, but loads of people just kind of like wrote it off afterwards, like saying, nah, it's not as strong as it once was because you can use Greninja to do more damage and Sableye and Dragonite and just do so much more powerful archetypes as well option. I think the Aerodactyl V-Star one, because there aren't too many like V-Star abilities or huge like powerful one, I generally don't think it's going to be as strong as people give it credit, but I think United Wings could be a really interesting archetype if it actually plays well. United Wings could generally be a really fun one because remember, Night March is done really well when it's legal. I think it's much better when Mad Party was at, but because it hits so much more better weaknessing. By if you look at some of the top decks as well, it hits weakness against Lugia and Gardevoir and Mew. So generally, potentially, United Wings could be really powerful. And Mirage on the X, it's kind of like going more of the Raichu Mareep build and saying kind of going by to the Magnezone and Regieleki sort of archetype, which I really enjoy playing. But I think the Mirage on the X is still really powerful. And Lugia as well, being a tier 3, tier 2 archetype is such a difference for where Lugia is kind of going for. But this is this person's predictions. I do agree with some of their sort of predictions in this one. Do you think Lost Zone Tina, Lost Zone Box, and Gardevoir is a good sort of position as well? I think the Arc Tina, yes, it's really powerful, but I would say maybe go to tier 2, maybe bump up another one like the Arc Umbreon sort of build. I think is stronger. But if we look at another person sort of tier 1 archetypes, they've put Xianpao, Lost Zone Box, and that Arceus, Umbreon, Pikachu, which I've talked to you about. I think that is one of the strongest decks right now on the format because it hits so many weaknesses and can slow down so many decks. I think Lost Zone Box with the Forest Seal Stone or Sky Seal Stone, because we're seeing an increase in V-Stars and V-Maxes. If we just look at that Arceus one here, the Dragonite can really kind of pressure on that and get this potentially extra prize card, which is really strong here. Or Forest Seal Stone, so you can get the Mirage Gate out as early as turn 1. Xianpao here, they put the combo piece of the Arceus and the Cross Switcher as the best of one to play with. And honestly, I do not disagree with them. I've been testing lots of the Turbo build, the Cross Switcher. I'm really enjoying it. I'm going more of the simple sort of version with the still having the Arceus, but going with more of the Bibarel, the kind of like changing my Xianpao list again before we get Pidgeot as well. But Xianpao is definitely one of these really good archetypes. Maybe not a tier 1, but maybe a tier 1.5. But generally, it's quite interesting that people in Japan are really rating Xianpao to be a strong deck and not that glass cannon like what people thought of like Vikabulu was. Their tier 2, they put Gardevoir and both versions of Giratina, the Lost Zone Box and the Arceus one. You can see here they've even mentioned the best of 3 sort of format here. Gardevoir and Giratina aren't as strong in a best of 3 format because Gardevoir can really go into ties and Giratina just can't really get the setup potentially at time. But Archetypes is that more disruptive archetype. It is potentially a tier 1 archetype purely on the basis of how strong just Judge Path is. And like I mentioned before, the other person put it tier 1, this one here puts it in tier 2. So is this a deck we should really respect? Abso-freaking-lutely. It's really, really powerful. It's super strong as well, and definitely something to keep on your radar. And finish off their tier 3, they've got Mew, Lugia, and that Rapid Strike box. It's so weird to say Mew and Lugia is like a tier 3 archetype. Like they were like tier 1, tier 2, pretty much from release date, but these big like stage 2 Pokemon which really focus on like capitalize on it, like the likes of Xian Pao, like the likes of Gardevoir, they're really pushing these big Pokemon away, which I generally really like this format is trying to evolve into that way here. I'm loving how the Scarlet and Violet format is starting to evolve. Really excited to see what they reveal at Worlds this week. And generally, that's super, super exciting. And generally, I'm super excited to cover where this format's evolving here. And I think I agree with this more of a tier 1, 2, and 3 structure than the previous one, purely because they're basing this a lot on the results that have been happening over. These are where I always cover most of my tournament results from. So if we just look ahead into where this format is starting to evolve here, will Xian Pao actually do that well at Worlds? Will this be like, will this win? Will this get a top 8 position? I hope it gets like a top 8 or top 16 position. And more importantly, is Lost Box really that strong? We've seen the likes of Dragonite or Giratina. Which one is going to be the strongest one? If we go the like what's happening over Japan, it'll be Lost and Giratina. Or even the hype about what's it's getting over in the US and UK, how well it's doing in these League Cups. Like generally, it could actually do well. And more importantly, will Japanese meta actually impact the Worlds at all? I've been covering it for 27 weeks. And people have actually been loving my coverage on this one, and it's giving an insight to a whole different sort of metagame to how we've been used to it. Will it actually impact the Worlds at all? Because if you think about the player-wise, it's going to be probably a bit less than what some of the US and European players are going to be. So I'm really excited to see how their meta will actually really impact it. Will people go in there respecting Xian Pao and Giratina a lot more than they do potentially if they went to NAIC? So I hope this has been really helpful to kind of giving you an insight exactly what the Japanese meta is starting to shape up to it, what the structure is, as well as more importantly, the top decks which people believe will actually do well. I'm actually going to be on holiday next week, so I will try and cover the best I can for the World Championships, but you might only get 1 or 2 and quite a few pre-recorded videos as well. So give me a comment down below exactly what you want to be looking for. I've got a couple of ideas in mind, and hopefully if they reveal any of the cool Paradox Pokemon, as well as some of the cool decks that won at Worlds, I'm going to try and cover that as much as possible. If you enjoyed this video, please make sure to like and subscribe, and don't forget to comment down below what your favorite deck archetype is over in Japan. My name is TCG, and I will see you guys in a couple of days' time. Bye for now.